Okay, first of all, check this out. We've got this beautiful sunset while it's raining, which is freaking awesome. And then wait for it. Bam! Look at that. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rusty Nuts Media. Back over here with Project Gewch, the world's ugliest caliber SRT4. Check it out. The wiring's all done. Look at the car, everything's loomed, everything's tucked away. It's all good, man. All good. Hey, look at that. Just look at it. I mean, it's dirty, but the wires are invisible now. Anywho, looking at a couple other things I've got. A big box of goodies for the car. A table full of crap to put on it. So today I'm gonna kind of dig into the rest of the stuff that needs to go on the car before the body panels go back on, like the breather, the catch can, the coolant overflow, a couple other things. They will be mounted along the sides, like inside the bumper, inside the fender, not in the engine bay, just kind of away from everything. And basically I want to get that stuff mounted in there today so I can go ahead and measure. Good Lord, it's raining so hard I'm having to yell. So I can measure how long of hoses, everything's going to be AN lines ran everywhere. I need to get it mounted so I can measure how long they need to be, and then just order all the hose at once. So that's kind of what I'm doing today. I'll probably get started on a few projects and kind of walk you through everything that's going on with the car, and little bit by little bit we'll be buttoning up, we'll be buttoning them up as we go. So let's take a look at what we got. All right, the first thing I'm going to talk about here that we're doing coming up is going to be the brake lines. As you guys have seen, the ABS module, all the brake lines have been deleted. Basically, this master cylinder is just two open threaded plugs right here. Normally, you would get some brake line, you would flare the end of it and get the little fitting that goes on the end of it, put it in there, and then run your hard lines wherever you want to go. Now, what I'm doing, let's see. All right, so we've got these fittings right here, which are gonna thread into here. These fittings are just gonna thread straight into there, and then that's a 3 AM fitting. So from there, we can do a 90 off that and come down and basically loop up to right here. These two holes that we've drilled in the firewall. In those holes will be these bulkhead fittings. These are bulkhead 90s. They're gonna go straight in just like that. And you can see it's just a 90. So it's gonna be pointed straight down. And we're gonna come off of here and up to there, just like that. Two lines, boop, boop. And that's gonna be the only brake lines visible under the engine bay. From there, once we get those two going in, one of them is for the front brakes, the other is for the rear. So we're gonna use a T on the on one of them for the front brakes, and just run lines to the driver's side and the passenger side. You know, just run them down the fender like we did before, all the way up to the brake lines that are running to the calipers right here. So that'll be the front. Then for the rear brakes, from that bulkhead fitting in the firewall, we're gonna come straight back down the center of the car, and we're going to run to a Willwood proportioning valve. This is an adjustable valve that lets us control how, basically how harsh your brake brakes, your back brakes are gonna function. You can kind of lighten them up, or you can make them really hard depending on your car, your weight setup, your distribution, all that kind of stuff. So we've got our adjustable proportioning valve there. We'll come out the other side of that, run it to the back of the car. Boom, there's a T right there also. Then we'll do 2 bulkhead fittings to the outside of the car and then run into the calipers. And basically the same thing as the master cylinder up front. We've got the fittings that go into the caliper lines that are still down here. And as far as the caliper lines go, these are the factory lines. They're the flexible, spongy, half rubber, half crap lines. So Goodrich, sounded like I run over a cat. Goodrich makes a brake line kit, and it just replaces all 4 corners of those lines right there. So we're gonna run our own -3 AN lines and meet up with the Goodrich kit that they have put together here. And our entire braking system will be braided 3 AN lines and adjustable rear brakes. Everything will be solid there. So that's the brakes. And next, in the previous video, or maybe the one right before that, I forget which one it was. I think it was Tuck and Shave Part 7, I believe. We went over the gauges right here, the oil pressure and oil temperature, where we put the sandwich plate adapter on the oil filter housing. So we got the wiring for those ran. So of course we'll be putting those gauges inside the car, and I can't talk today. Another gauge we've got is our new Autometer boost gauge here. It's from 0 to 45 PSI. I kind of like this one because hopefully I'll be mid-30s. I don't know, eventually go up to 40. Who knows at this point? And then, of course, already in the car, we've got our AEM wideband, and we've got 2 Aeroforce scan gauges in the car already. So that'll be a total of 6 gauges in the car. And I'm not a fan of putting a whole bunch of gauges in the car, but I just feel like I needed all of these. It's just kind of stuff that I wanted to monitor as we go along. So that's gonna handle it for all of our gauges. And then we've also got our coolant overflow here, which is pretty simple. It's pretty standard stuff. So the coolant overflow, pretty straightforward stuff here. So this is gonna be mounted somewhere in the fender well, maybe down in the bumper or something like that. You've got the cap on top that lets you go in there, do whatever you want. And inside here, so you've got 2 ports on the bottom. All right, so you're gonna run your coolant overflow into this little port right here in the middle. That, I don't know if you can see down inside here, but there's just a hole in the bottom of here that lets this entire cylinder fill up. Now, when it does fill up, there's this side one over here, this side port. It's basically a straw that comes all the way up to the top. So if this coolant overflow gets full and it reaches the top of that other, I'll call it a straw because that's the only word I can think of right now. Once it reaches that port, how about that? That port right there, it will overflow and go either to the ground out of there, or you can route that wherever you want. It can be to another catch can and basically just make a chain of catch cans all the way along. I doubt we're ever gonna run out of run that over. So we'll get this mounted today if we can. And that way all I have to do is measure what size hose that is right there, and then we can order that with the AN lines that we have to order and get that installed also. So that's the coolant overflow. All right, the next thing going on the car is the breather slash catch can, whatever you want to call this. So the caliper has 2 ports coming off the valve cover. You've got this one right here, and it would usually, I believe, run to the intake or somewhere along there. I know I actually just had one of those little PCV filters right here on the side. A lot of people do that. So that's actually gonna be running to our breather can that we've got over here. And then also this port right here, that originally ran to an oil catch can that was mounted over here and then ran to the back of the intake manifold. So I've actually capped that little port on the back of the intake manifold right there. I've capped it, and instead of from running to there to the catch can to there, we're just gonna run that to one of the ports on the breather and also run this to one of the ports on the breather. And as you can see, you've got 2 ports on the side of here. You've also got a drain on the bottom. You've got your filter. It's just grommet stuck inside this canister right here, so you can change it out. No big deal. There's nothing really special about that. Typical breather kind of setup. So that's another thing. I cannot talk today. Do you guys hear me? All right, next thing. All right, next thing on the list, pretty simple stuff. We've got some titanium exhaust wrap from DEI. We've also got some of the metal zip ties, locking ties, whatever you want to call them, the stainless steel locking ties to keep that stuff on there. We also have a turbo blanket here in this box, which brings me to one of my favorite boxes, the turbocharger. I don't want to take it out right now just because it's raining and it's not going on the car for a while. I don't want it to rust up. That is a Precision 6266 turbocharger. I'm not sure of all the other exact specs. I'd have to pull it out and look at it, but the day will come where we install that on there. We'll go into more detail with that. So that's going to be all the hot parts right there. We also have a, I believe it's a Turbo Smart 45 millimeter external wastegate. This is the one that I ran last year and I believe year before that. So it's also in the box here, no big deal. Just waiting to go on with the turbo. The only thing I'm waiting for that, I've got the V-band flanges coming in so I can go ahead and weld up the exhaust. The only thing I'm waiting on is the turbo manifold. I've gotten a custom tubular turbo manifold built for this thing. It's getting finalized right now and I should have it in the next week or two, depending on what their schedule looks like. So once that gets in here, we can get that turbo installed. We can throw the drain on it, the oil feed, get everything painted, ceramic coated, exhaust wrapped, try to keep the temperature as low as we can under the hood. And that's gonna be the hot parts right there. I told you I can't talk today. And now the last thing that I wanted to go over, it's kind of a first for the calibers. I know nobody with a caliber has done this before. I'm sure there's a lot of engine swap people, a lot of LS swap guys do this. So my engine, we have deleted the power steering pump if you watched that episode. So the power steering pump is gone. Like I just said, the power steering pump is gone. So right now our steering rack just has the high pressure line inlet open. It's just a threaded hole, it's wide open, as well as where the return line would go, it's just a threaded hole right now. So I've got 2 fittings here. And if you notice, these fittings have this little O-ring right here on the end of it, just like that. Those are gonna be your high pressure fittings for like power steering pumps, stuff that can get up to like 1500, 2000 PSI. We've got those to go in our steering rack for the feed and the return. Now I did say we were deleting our power steering pump, which is true to an extent, but something that I'm going to add to help it out. Like I said, a lot of swap guys have been doing this. There's a couple different ways you can do it. I know there are electric pumps with Toyota MR2s. I think Mazda 3s have them. I got this pump off of a Volvo, I believe it was an S40, like a 2010 model. When I went to the junkyard and got the spare harness for the caliber and a couple other things, I went ahead and grabbed this off of a Volvo. And that's kind of funny because this pump was made by the Ford Motor Company. So I'm putting a Ford electric power steering pump off of a Volvo into my Dodge. And so I've got the plugs, I went ahead and pulled them off with it, and basically that's always gonna be power, that's always gonna be ground, and then these 3 wires right here just kind of turn it on and off. And we can wire this up to a toggle switch. With some fuses in line, of course, we can put this on a toggle switch. So number 1, it's gonna get the pulley, the power steering pump pulley, off the engine of the car. It's gonna free up just a tiny amount of power there, no huge deal. But of course, any power you free up, when you're using this power steering pump, this is gonna create more draw on your alternator. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. You know, you've removed one thing, but you've added a little bit to another thing. The cool thing about this is, once we get this hooked up to a battery and a toggle switch, we could turn our power steering on without the motor in the car. It doesn't have to be running or anything. We could set this car on the ground, flip the switch, power this pump on, and we've got power steering without the car even running. Which is cool for, like, you know, loading trailers and stuff like that. And another thing, when you're at the track, if you're at the drag strip and you want that any extra power you can free up at all, when you pull up to the line and you go to do your burnout, you can turn your power steering off and basically eliminate any draw on the alternator from this whatsoever. So your power steering is gonna be at the flick of a switch, which I think is kind of cool. I've never done this before. It's gonna be my first time doing this. I haven't done too much research on it, but I know just enough to get it hooked up. And I'm gonna play with it and see what I can do. I don't know the factory caliber SRT4 pressure that the power steering pump puts out. I don't know what pressure this one puts out, but I know this one assisting our power steering rack is gonna be better than absolutely nothing, so it's not gonna hurt anything. Worst case scenario, if I don't like it, I rip it out. What's the big deal? We just don't have power steering, whatever. But that's kind of a cool thing, so I'm probably gonna mount this somewhere in the middle of the car, as low as I can. It's kind of a heavier unit, so we're gonna get it as low to the ground and as centered as we can, maybe a little bit more toward the front. It's also kind of loud when you turn it on. I've tested it to make sure it works and everything. All I did is run the pressure side over here into the return, just kind of made a little loop so it shoots fluid into itself. Now, the return on this is just a clamp style here. You've got your reservoir and you've got your electric pump. This is also gonna be a high pressure fitting with the O-ring. Like I said, this goes right in there. And then we can run you can't just run a normal AN line. I'm sure you could, but they don't suggest it. They actually make special power steering braided lines to use, and I think they're just rated for higher pressure. So that's what I'm gonna end up using on this, is running a -6 AN line from this pump, high pressure feed to the rack, and then high pressure power steering line all the way back to here, and then just clamp it on right there. I don't like this not being the screw-on AN fitting type, but I don't know. Maybe they make a fitting that'll go in there. Who knows? We'll try to find something just to make sure I don't have any burst hoses or anything from my power steering. So that's kind of a cool little project we've got going on with Gewch, and that's kind of the table full of toys here. So I know I've done a lot of talking. I'm gonna go ahead and try to get some of this on the car today. I'll, like I usually do, I'll update you as I go along. Anything that gets mounted, I'll kind of check you up to date on it and show you where I mounted it and all that kind of stuff. So I'll see you in a minute. All right, update. I couldn't find a place to mount this. I did manage to take the mounting bracket with it when I removed it, and I'm actually gonna have to modify that or just make another mounting bracket to put it probably right back in this corner, back behind the dash on the passenger side. I'll probably mount it back there. However, coolant overflow mounted, solid as a rock, all good to go. All I've got to do is run the hose to it, and the breather mounted, solid as a rock. All I've got to do is run the lines to it. So both of those are mounted. They're completely out of the way of the bumper, the fender, the headlight, and I mocked everything up just to make sure we had room for everything. And that's where they're gonna be. And the cool thing about it is when everything's on, you can just see it right there. Now the headlight will sit right on top of it. So unfortunately, if I have to get in here, I have to take the headlight out, but I shouldn't really have to get into the overflow too often, so it's not that big of a deal. This one, you would have to take the headlight out to replace the filter, but that's not the biggest deal in the world. That filter is probably not gonna get too dirty. I had the little PCV filter on here for a little over a year and it didn't even get dirty. It's actually still clean. So overall, those things are installed, with the exception of mounting the power steering pump inside the car. All the little accessories are here. So all I'm gonna do now, my shorts are stuck on the car. All I'm gonna do now is measure the length of hoses and wires that I need to connect everything together, order those, and those are complete. Now, the next video is probably gonna be the brakes. You know the plan. You know where the fittings go, you know where the lines go. I'll probably measure those also, so I can go ahead and order the -3 AN lines to get everything here. I can go ahead and put all the fittings, the proportioning valve, and all that kind of stuff in, and then all I'll be waiting on is the braided hoses for the rest of it. So that's what we got going on today. It's actually a lot of really small projects happening all at once. I'm trying not to go too fast, but then again, I just want to finish the car, man. So that's what I'm trying to do. Hey, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel right now. If you subscribe to this channel, I will draw a very obscene picture somewhere on this car, not visible to the public, but you'll know it's there. It'll be just for you. How about that? So right after you subscribe, leave me a comment. Say, hey, draw that picture on the car, and I'll do it. All right, guys, if you like the video, go ahead and like it. Leave us a comment, do whatever you want to do. Thank you for watching Rusty Nuts Media, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.